Welcome to the 2011 Writers Workshop. I'm very excited about this class. We're going to have lots of fun. So today we're going to talk about giving you some insight into the writing process, giving you some tools, hopefully, and some tips that will help you choose the topic to write about, because that's what you guys are responsible for. Show of hands, how many of you are responsible for putting stuff on your website? Everybody, awesome, okay. And then I also want to help you feel more comfortable with writing features. All of the materials for today that I will discuss are on the Moodle Pro site. Right here you'll see Writers Workshop. I've tried to send you all links and such. I think what you've heard from the last ones that were here before, we had a former newspaper editor talk about the crisis that the news media is in right now. We had a reunion with the Inquirer Journal staff from when I was a reporter editor there last week, and there was about a dozen of us that got together. That most of us had been there in the newspaper's heyday, when we had 12 reporters and 6 editors and all this news staff and photographers. Now they have, I think, a couple of people there. I mean, it's that critical. It's an awesome opportunity for all of you to get your stuff published in the newspaper. Karen Pruitt, our very own Karen, did this story right here. She got this in the Inquirer Journal from Weddington Middle School. She did an awesome job getting this story there, and they printed it. This is another story that was in Inquirer Journal. This is another one of our communicators that sent this in with a photograph. It's really, really a doable thing now to be published. And as writers, and all of you who are writers, and even those of you who are not writers, it's kind of cool to see your name in the paper. This was written by Donna Helms, media coordinator at Piedmont High School. The news media is great, but your websites are probably a lot more visited than our newspapers. So a lot more people are going to see your stories there. So don't dissuade the importance of that. Let's talk a little bit about some news coverage, the types of news coverage. You've got hard news stories. Now, the hard news stories are what? Give me some ideas of some hard news stories. It's hard news, hard to hear, hard to handle. That's a way to remember it. And then you've got your feature stories, which is what you're going to do. The hard news, you're not going to write probably. But then again, there are some hard news stories that you might actually put together. And I'm going to show you some of those shortly. Then there's media advisories, and that is exactly what it sounds. You're advising the media what's going to happen. You're saying, hey, we're going to have a fall festival. Come on out. Check it out. There's news briefs. Our principal just won, some award or what have you. Teachers just got a $5,000 grant. It's an opportunity to write paragraphs, like 3 or 4, and put them in the paper. And then, of course, the coming events, which is just blah, blah, blah. Fall festival, 4 o'clock. Wednesday the 15th, just basic stuff. Now this is hard news. 1 dead, another critical, and murder-suicide. By looking at the lead, an attempted murder-suicide left 1 man dead and a second in critical condition after a shooting on MacArthur Circle. That's hard news. You won't be writing those stories, but I want you to understand the difference. Jury convicts 3 North Carolina men in terror plot. You won't be writing those stories, but this is what hard news is all about. And this is why a lot of the reporters, they're writing these kind of stories, and it's kind of neat that you're doing the features. A federal jury convicted 3 North Carolina men Thursday. Just facts, just the facts. This is about 2 SROs, school resource officers, who were at 9/11. This is a tough story. But is it hard news? No. This was a feature. You can read the lead and it tells you that it's not hard news. Leads and feature stories are more creative, they're more relaxed. Feature stories in general are much more relaxed and just creative in their presentation. Today will be especially difficult for 2 school resource officers. It marks the 10th anniversary of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack on America, a day that changed this country forever. That doesn't tell you much about what's going on in the story. It just tells you some basic stuff. And that's what a lot of the feature leads will do. They don't have a lot of the 2 men murdered, but thought out, whatever, the facts. And here's another. This is more of a hard news story. Now, but is this about bad stuff? No. UCPS has the biggest graduation rate in the state, or one of the best. That's hard news, basically. That is where you might come in. You might write something like this. It's not blood, guts, and gore, but it is more of a news type. You've got Union County Public School Systems and 3 high schools were recognized by state officials in Durham yesterday. So you've got your subject, your verb, and it's just real basic. But that's something that you might actually do. Character building taught through physical ed. Now, this is a typical feature story. Listen to this lead. Confidence is the byproduct of competence. Does that tell you anything about what the story's about? No. Hopefully it makes you, though, want to go, oh, okay, what is this about, to read farther. This is one of the philosophies taught through a character education club held in about a dozen Union County Public Schools, elementary and middle schools. So those are the kind of things you could write. This is a feature story, but you might also be doing something like this. And this is more of a regular little news story. The 2011-12 Union County Public Schools Principal of the Year is Donna Cook. So that's not real featurey, it's not real creative, but it is something that you could pull together, that you could write. All right, I want you to look at this. Tell me if this is feature or if this is hard news. USCPS is visited by State Board of Education Chairman. Union County Public Schools received a big pat on the back Wednesday during a visit from the chairman of the State Board of Education. Feature. What tells you that's a feature? Why do you know that's a feature? Big pat on the back. Exactly. That doesn't say, now if I were going to make this more of a hard news story, I would say Bill Harrison, chairman of the State Board of Education, came to Union County Public Schools and visited 4 schools yesterday. Just boom, 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 just the facts. But when you kind of jazz it up a little bit, make it more, a big pat on the back, which is kind of a cliche that I probably shouldn't have used, but that's okay. I'm going to tell you not to use cliches in a minute. Now tell me this, I'm going to read you this one, I want you to tell me if it's a feature or hard news. When South Providence School Principal Barry Ross realized that 30% of his staff were new, he knew he had to build some camaraderie between the staff before the school bell rang on the first day of school. Okay. What do you think? Is that a feature or is that news, hard news? Feature. What tells you that's a feature? Yeah, camaraderie. He knew he had a problem, and so this is how he solved it. It's not, to make this more of a news story where it's a straight, not featurey, you might say, South Providence Principal Barry Ross initiated or incorporated some new teaching styles at his school. It's just, but you see the difference? You feel the difference there? And this is another thing that there's always exceptions to every rule. Your leads are supposed to be 1 sentence, 20, 25 words, 30 at the most. I usually follow that, but as you can see, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Let's get into the types of feature stories we've got, because we've talked about the difference between hard news and feature now, but there's a bunch of different types of feature stories. And the reason I'm bringing these out is because I want you to be able to identify the different types of things that you could generate. First person, now I went over some of this before, so some of you, this will be review for you. First person, what is a first person story? Who can tell me what a first person story is? Yes, ma'am. That's right. When I was a journalist, I loved doing first person stories. I got myself arrested. It was all kosher. It wasn't real, but I pretended to shoplift and I had the chief of police right there on my side, so he knew what I was doing. But the photographers followed me. I pretended to shoplift so that I could go through the process of being arrested. I was handcuffed and taken out of Belk. The Belk management knew what we were doing. It was all kosher. But I was actually fingerprinted, booked, and put behind bars so that I could say, look, guys, this is what's going to happen to you if you're arrested. I did this. Cattle drives. I used to love to go on cattle drives, and I've been on about a dozen of them, and I'd always write about them. Take pictures because, hey, how many of you have been on a cattle drive? That's something that you don't really see in this part of the country. So I would write about my aching bones and how I was in the saddle for 15 hours a day and how, you know, I had some bulls try to attack my horse and stuff like that that you just don't always see, but it was kind of fun. Human interest stories. Students helping families in need, especially at the holidays. And we could talk about 4th of July. We have soldiers. We benefit our soldiers around 4th of July. I mean, it's not just Christmas. But those are the kind of human interests that are really, really, really well received by the newspapers. Story about a neat event occurring, the Fall Festival, student art show, principal sitting on the roof to raise money. How many of your principals have done really kind of crazy things to raise money? There you go. Shaved their heads, kissed a pig, you know, to raise money for a good cause. Those are kind of cute. Profiles. You could profile your principal, profile a teacher. I profiled one of our teachers who just got back from Iraq. This was several years ago. But he went from being, he was a teacher at Parkwood actually, and I taught with him. And he went from being a teacher in the classroom to serving, to fighting a war. I mean, he was on the battlefield and was there for a year or two, then came back into the classroom. And that adjustment was pretty interesting. So, I mean, I did something on that. And then, of course, you know, your students, or you might want to review a movie, review a book, just to write a little bit of a review for your school so that other students can see what it's all about. Feature ideas. One of the things online on the Moodle site are 52 feature story ideas. This was sent to me by one of my communicators, and I thank you very much. Modern day heroes, unusual pets, making a comeback, the student of faculty. I mean, it's just 52 awesome ideas if you're looking for things to do. And this is on the Moodle site. This is online. How do you pick a topic? You can look at these. You can write about things you're interested in. As I told you guys before, I'm so totally not interested in sports. I have to ask Don what a basketball is. I mean, I'm just completely not interested. So he has to kind of keep me posted on what's going on in the world of sports. I wouldn't be a good one to write about that. I'll do my best. I'll do the best I can do, but I got to do a lot of research so I'll even know the right words to use. Write about stuff you're interested in. Write about what you like, and there'll be more interesting stories for not only you, but for your reader. Cool things at your school community, things you want to learn more about. One of the key factors in being a good reporter is your curiosity, high levels of curiosity, because you want to know everything about everything. Interesting people on the job, hobbies, sports. Look at the human interest element of that. Listen to things going on at your school. Listen to things going on around the building. What are some interesting things students doing? If you had a foreign exchange student, those are always really fascinating. Look at the difference in her country or his country and where they're staying. There's steps and procedures that you need to follow in order to do this. So let's say we have a principal who has, let's just do one I've done. They've served in the war, and they're back now. Barry Ross was in the service, and say I wanted to interview him. The first thing I need to do is what? I need to set up the interview. But after I set up the interview, I need to do what? I need to research my topic. I had to interview Tom Tillis, who's the North Carolina Speaker of the House. He was at Cuthbertson High School the other day. And before I could even go out there, I had to figure out, what's his title? What district does he represent? I didn't know. So I went online and found out he's a representative, so you call him Representative Tillis, and he was sworn in 2011. So these are some of the things that will help you when you do a little bit of research on a topic you don't know much about. It'll help you write your questions. You know you're going to do the who, what, when, where, why, and how. That'll help you generate your questions too. But if you've got a little bit of background, you know, he was sworn in 2011, so he hasn't been doing this very long. So that gave me a question. Okay, well, what's it like? You know, you've only been doing this. What'd you find? You know, a bunch of questions came to mind when I knew this information. Write your questions down. It is really, really hard to remember everything you want to ask somebody when they're sitting there looking at you, talking to you about the last question you ask, because you're absorbed into what they're saying. So write your questions down and check them off mentally or whatever so that you know what you're doing. Don't, and as I told you before last time, always take pictures with your stories. You have to do that. It's just a must. Obviously, you can't run a story on your website without a picture, and the newspaper is much more likely to run it if they've got nice pictures to go along with it. So when you're taking your camera to your interview, what do you need? The first thing you need to do? Batteries. Make sure it's got batteries. Make sure it's got a card in it, memory card. Check those things the night before, because if your batteries are dead, you don't need to be on the scene of your story and find out you have no batteries in your camera. Make sure your pen works. If you use a tape recorder, which I do, make sure that your tape recorder has batteries and it's all ready to go. When you get there, especially if somebody you don't know, and this stuff I'm telling you, I don't really need to tell you this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I've got it written right here, so I need to say it. Be professional. Look professional when you interview somebody. I know reporters are notorious to come and cut off blue jeans and baseball caps because they just do, but that's not who you are. When I say the who, what, when, where, why, and how, these are just some little key things to help you remember questions to ask, but you don't have to put it, Barry Ross, military, 1942, I mean, make it into sentences. This is just to help you, but it will help you write your questions and also help you make sure you've got everything you need to have. Once you get your interview done, make sure, always double check your information. Like if you're interviewing, for example, a student or a teacher, get their first and last name. A lot of times I see in your stories you'll say Mrs. Jones. Well, there could be 5 Mrs. Joneses at that school. So please say Sarah Jones. Especially if you're sending it to the newspaper. They won't run it unless they have first names. And if you have a student, we always like to put their age in the paper. Adults, not so much. And ask how to spell it. Believe it or not, there's more than one way to spell Mary. What is her title or position? Again, Representative Tom Tillis. If I'd have said Senator Tom Tillis, he would not have been very impressed with me. And if you don't understand something, don't feel like you can't say, excuse me, could you tell me that again? Could you explain that? I'm not sure I understand that. That's okay. It's okay to do that, especially if you're on a topic that you don't know a lot about. Now, writing is a creative process. You know that. Just like painting. A writer needs a little bit of a different environment than, say, an accountant. So, do you work better when silence, with music going? My coworker, Arthur Rogers, has music going all the time, and CNN over here, and music, and as he's doing his drafting and stuff. I have to have silence, and I listen to crickets, and I listen to birds singing in my headphones to block out all the noise on my hall. I prefer to be alone. I know some people who like to write in a coffee shop. I'm an afternoon writer. My brain doesn't wake up till about 2:30. So that's why I'm usually at the office till 6 or 7, because that's when I'm most creative. Find out what your most creative time is, and that will help you a lot. It really will. It'll help you in writing this, because this is a challenge for most of you. It's a challenge to write. Once you get your information together, don't think, I can't start until I come up with a perfect lead. Just start writing. And I'll show you what I do. This over here on the right, I just start writing all my information down. My quotes, everything. Just write it all down. And then I set up another page and I move, okay, I read the first paragraph. Okay, that's more toward the end, so I put it down here. That's more toward the beginning, so I'll put it over here. And I just like a puzzle. And that's what works best for me. You have to find your own way of doing stuff. But don't try to wait until you come up with a perfect anything. Just jump in and start writing. Put your quotes in. Put the little quote marks around it. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's why they call it a rough draft. They say write in active voice, like people, the principal came to see the property, or the student is coming tomorrow, or whatever, as opposed to the project was done by, that's what they're talking about when they say active voice. Accuracy is essential. Do your research. Avoid cliches, unless you're me. Fish out of water, rain like cats and dogs, that kind of stuff. Avoid overly sentimental statements. The student's heart burst with pride as they joyfully and enthusiastically sang the anthem. Just avoid overly sentimental, unless somebody says it. That's the perfect time to put something like that in it. When somebody says it, it can be as sappy as they want it to be. It's not a problem there. But it sounds kind of, it doesn't sound right when a writer does it. And make sure you've got quotes, at least one, by a student or by the person that's organizing it. They give your story credibility. They back up what you're saying. And don't say like, Dr. Davis said that the event went really well, and then quote, the event went really well. Dr. Davis said the event went really well, and then I would quote him as saying, this is the third year we've done this, and it gets better and better every year. You see what I'm saying? You don't have to be redundant in your quoting. And always use, again, the first and last name and the titles. This is just the anatomy of a feature, and I just thought I'd just pull this together. Most of you probably already know this, but I just thought I would. This is what it looks like when I send it to the newspapers, and it's just the way I'm used to doing things. Your cut line, your caption, you know what that is? Who knows what a caption is or a cut line? Where does it go? Under the photo, that's right. Editors are notorious for writing horrible headlines, so I write my own headlines. Don't leave somebody else to write your headline for you when you do your story, because I guarantee you they'll get it wrong. This is your lead. Okay, your first paragraph leads into the story, and hopefully it'll be interesting enough to get people's interest. And then I usually try to put a quote right after it. And then, of course, your body of the story. Then there's the chance for your information and background. Schmidt was invited by Wolf teacher Karen Thelman, you know, and then another quote, and then your conclusion. Conclusion kind of wraps it up. It's not as important in hard news, but it is in feature stories to kind of have some sort of ending. And, well, what can you do? You can't always come up with something kind of sharp to say, but you can say, Smith says she enjoys visiting schools and showing students the diversity of instruments. For more information, call, and that tells you it's over with. Or next month, they will compete in the nationals. Or go to this website if you want to see blah, blah, blah. And I've got some more of those. The lead is the most important part. It entices and hooks. The feature story, as opposed to hard news, uses drama, emotion, quotes, questions, and descriptions. There's quotes in hard news too, but it's more of a creative, descriptive kind of thing. It's a chance for you just to get real wild and crazy with your writing. The body, of course, follows through with what the lead promises. So make sure if you talk about an elephant in the room in your lead that you mention what the elephant in the room was. Of course, that's a cliche and you wouldn't use it. But make sure you talk about what that is in the body of the story. And then wrap it up, future, for more information. Those are some kind of quick and easy, down and dirty ways of doing your conclusion. And again, you see how many quotes I use in this story? There's a quote, there's a quote, there's a quote. Here's fact, and then conclusion. And this conclusion, it's different. I was really proud of it. This is a byline, by the way. If you ever wonder what a byline is, it's by the person that wrote it. This is a story I did on cell phone use by teenagers and how it was a real problem, and it is a real problem, especially texting. And I interviewed Trent Faulkner. And my lead was, it's a phone call nobody wants to get. You guys may have read this already. It was on the website. The one that breaks the news that a loved one has been injured, possibly fatally, in a car accident. His mother was killed talking on a cell phone. And he's the driver ed instructor at Sun Valley. So he got such a phone call 2 years ago about his mother, and then I give her name. She was talking to her husband on her cell phone, and we believe she either dropped it or was not paying attention. She pulled out in front of the intersection in front of a truck in Concord. So that's pretty powerful. I mean, you know. And then then I interviewed students about, tell me, is this a real problem with your friends? And it is a real problem with their friends. And then I explained that I have some detailed background. Driving while using a cell phone reduces the amount of brain activity associated with driving 37%, just talking on a cell phone. So there's my facts that research I did. And then the ending was, we talk about how to stop students. This whole thing is geared toward how to stop students. But then when I get to the end, I say how to stop parents from being distracted by cell phone use may involve something more tragic, as Faulkner can attest. So that was a way of just wrapping it all up But at the same time, it didn't say for more information or one of those things. Now, the lead, again, is a hint of what's to come. You can make it entertaining and interesting. Try to keep it less than 30 words, which I'm terrible about doing. But I want to read you a couple of leads and tell me, this is what I'm talking about. This was, these quote marks, pay no attention to them. I should have taken them out. This was the lead of the story. It's difficult to silence bleachers filled with 1,500 high school students. But during yesterday's mock deadly crash on prom night, staged on the football field at Porter Ridge High School, one could hear the proverbial pin drop. That's about 35 words. And this is another one. It's not quite as long. But you see what I'm saying? It's not your hard. It's like it sort of gives you a feel for what's coming, a feel for the story that you're about to read. More than 1,000 students from 15 Southwest states converged on Sun Valley High School Friday for a 3-day conference aimed at helping shape the leaders of tomorrow. This is not really a feature lead. It's more of a fact, person, place, thing. But it gives you an idea of a different type of lead. As far as the length on your feature stories, shoot for between 500 to 800 words. Avoid cliches, use quotes, they breathe life into your story. Good transition between paragraphs is a must, and wrap up is at the conclusion. Now, on the length of these, I know some of the stories that I've seen on websites are basically one paragraph. They're more of a cut line. It's really important to have at least 4 or 5 paragraphs, and don't make it all one. Break it up, a sentence or 2 sentences. We're talking about columns that are this big. So break it up into a couple of sentences, even if it breaks the flow. And either indent, well, you don't indent. I've seen some people who indent and then skip a line. You just need to skip lines between them and justify left. You don't have any indentions there. But try to have 500 to 800 words is a good ballpark, but at least 5 or 6 paragraphs, and that's easy to do. It's not hard at all to get that much information. The conclusion is a way of letting people know I'm done. This is the end of the story. One of the ways to do that is for more information. Go to www, blah, 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 blah. The future holds. Those are good. So John Smith will now be competing in these www. That's good for the news media because obviously you can't click on a newspaper and go to where you're going. But when you're doing it for the website, do you all know how to link stories? You all know how to do that, right? There's a place for you to do that. You just highlight it and then go down and put in where it's supposed to be. So, and Don can show you how to do that if you don't know, but it's important so that people can just click on the words. For more information, go to the JARS website, and then it's highlighted so you'll know that. After I write the stories that I do, and you want to send it to the news media, just put it right in an email. And this is one that I did for Donna Cook when she was Principal of the Year. And, it's got my picture there. Make sure it's a JPEG. We'll talk about that next month. 300 resolutions. And then it's just, I put the date, I put the contact. Luann is the contact person for the school system. And then the cut line information, and then the story. It's just, Tiffany can tell you this. She does a gazillion of these. She sends them right to the news media. It's just, you just put it in there, put the pictures in there, and it's very simple. If you've got a public service announcement, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on at your school you want to advertise, who knows what a public service announcement is? Can you tell me? Anybody? It's an announcement that you're doing a public service. They're saying a public service because they're doing it free. And they're announcing, like this was the United States Army Field Band Jazz Ensemble would perform at Marvin Ridge High School on April 3rd. It's a media announcement. It's announcing this so that the public will know to come. Now, a media advisory or a media alert is when you're notifying the news media. I'm having an event, like this morning, June Atkinson was at Western Union Elementary School. And so they did a media alert to Inquirer Journal and said, she's coming today. Can you come cover it? They don't want that in the paper. That wasn't advertising. It's just an alert for the news media to come. So this will help you, hopefully, if you've got some things to send, it'll help you understand the differences. This is the coming events I was talking about. 9 a.m., Ellen Fitzgerald, open to the seniors. I mean, it's just facts, but that's a good way of advertising any festivals or things you've got open to the public. And then if you've got a principal or a school teacher or someone at your school that's done something you want to put in here, this is a nice way of doing it. Or just, anything that you've got, a couple paragraphs that you want to put in there. That's the way of doing it. Another thing that you should never do in your leads is start with a date. And I know it's easy to do that. On Monday, September 11th, the Parent Involvement Committee sponsored a student versus parent soccer night at blank blank school. Well, it's more interesting to say the Parent Involvement Committee sponsored a student versus parent soccer night at blank blank school Monday night. The date is really insignificant. I mean, it's important because you need to know when it is to go, but what's important is what the event is, and that's what you need to start with. It's just a more interesting way of doing it. And remember to put the names of your school or department or whatever in these. I've gotten some features from some of my communicators, and they'll say, the Parent Involvement Committee sponsored a student versus a parent soccer game. And they're assuming that because it's showing up on their website, everybody knows it's at blah, blah school, but you don't. I mean, there could be somebody that's just from Canada, and they clicked onto your website, and they're reading it, and they're going, well, where is this? What school is this? So always put the name of your school in your stories and identify, even just like you're writing for someone that doesn't know who you are. Oh, don't rely on your computer spell check, because it misses things like pubic school instead of public school. That bit me in the behind recently. It misses things like H-E-A-R as opposed to H-E-R-E. So when you write your story, give it to someone else to read, because it's really hard for you to see your own mistakes. Give it to a student that's really smart, that's really good. Give it to someone and let them look over it, or an English teacher. Have an editor. There's like 3 or 4 people in Central Services that I say, would you look over this? Just to catch things like Union County Pubic Schools. And don't just send it to the EJ. Send it to everybody. Send it to the Home News in Marshall. Send it to Union Weekly, because they cover Union County too. And those addresses are all available for you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a writing activity. Woo! But generate a feature story from this information. So that's your assignment.
Just copy you when we send out the advisory time. And we'll send you
and it's about an hour-long presentation.
Now, this is not your video release, right?
No,
We're
this
gonna
was
take
just,
this
this was
out.
just an email that we sent to the principals confirming the schedule and so forth, so we need
No face. Thanks out, and take the thanks out, and maybe just say, he will speak to students, about the dangers of smokeless tobacco.
These are also my future story.
We do that.
And he's about he's also it's not exactly 4 pages of all Union County. You like that first one? I do. Is that a decent size?
Or you want to just read, address everything.
I wanted to address something really quickly while you're still writing. I had a really good question posed to me about cut lines and headlines. I've noticed they're a real challenge to write a photo caption. You need more than just naming who's in the picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but that doesn't mean you don't need words telling you what's going on in the picture. If you have a picture, she had one of some characters some children sitting on a park bench. And it's obvious, Jane Doe and Bobby Sue are sitting on the park bench. But tell what they're doing. They're enjoying a sunny afternoon while visiting with such and such. What are they, give some background information. Even if it's obvious, you need to have a complete sentence in there. Same with your headlines. You can't just say Mineral Springs Elementary Fall Festival. That's not a headline. It needs to have action. Mineral Springs holds annual fall festival. That's a sentence. You've got a subject and a verb. You see what I'm saying? So when you're writing your captions, try to give a little bit of information and also identify where the people are. If you've got 5 people in that picture and you say you're only talking about one of them, I'm not going to know which one you're talking about. So when you say Janie Sue seated at right or standing at left, and usually you identify people from left to right. But make sure your headlines are a complete sentence, and that's easy to do. And when you're writing a long headline and you see it on your website and you've got all this information on the page and then there's one little word down here, that's called an orphan. Cut out a word or two so that that's all one line. Okay, I have one of you who has bravely allowed me to read her masterpiece. Yay! So here we go. Students in Judy Smith's class at Mineral Springs Elementary in Mineral Springs, North Carolina, celebrated fair in a big way this past Saturday. Fall. I'm so sorry. Celebrated fall in a big way this past Saturday. The 5th grade students organized the 5th Fall Festival for school and the community. Perfect. Students in Judy Smith's class, so she's talking about who's doing it. This is the subject, and she identifies where it is. Celebrated fall in a big way. So you're going, oh, what did they do? A big way? Woo. And then she goes on to explain it. According to Smith, each class, and then according to Smith, she's starting her sentence with the letting know who's talking. I usually start with quotes and then tell who's talking inside the quote, but you're perfectly fine with saying, according to Smith. Each class looks forward to working on the festival as they become 5th graders. The students made all the decorations, planned all the activities, and named the manned the ticket booths. I'm sorry, it was a little teeny word. The longest lines formed, see, she's going to town here. The longest lines formed at the lobby? At the Bobbing for Apples. She was right in a hurry. But everyone also enjoyed various indoor and outdoor games, including relay races. 4th and 5th graders signed up to participate in a scavenger hunt, while parents enjoyed seeing their students' artwork, which was also on display. This is a wonderful way to get school year off to a good start, Smith said. This year, festivals raised more than $500 for the school, which will be used to purchase art supplies. This year's 4th graders are already planning for next year's festival. Nicely done. Nicely done. But she covered all the bases. She had a quote in there. She talked about what's going on, and she did her culminating thing. They're planning for next year. So nicely done. Who else wants to go? Okay. Okay, you can talk about it.
My headline, Middle Springs Elementary School 2011 Annual Fall Festival. Is that too long?
No, but is there a verb in there? Hold Fall Festival. That's all you need, one verb.
Well, then I started off, Middle Springs Elementary School, located in Middle Springs, North Carolina, held their annual Fall Festival on Saturday, September the 20th, 2011. Judy Smith and her 5th grade class are organizers for this event. Students look forward to this all year, Smith said. It's a wonderful way to get the school year off to a fun start. Some of the fun activities included bobbing for apples, relay races, indoor and outdoor games, student artwork display, and a cookie sale fundraiser. The school raised $500 and will be used for new art supplies at their school.
Nice. That is more of a straight news story. It's more of the, this is what happened. These are the information. Perfect. Nicely done. Nicely done. Anybody else?
I didn't finish, but I'll read mine.
Okay.
From virtual pin the tail on the donkey to action-packed scavenger hunts, middle school. I can't read my own writing. The hallways and classrooms. Wait a minute. The hallways and classrooms were filled with excited young faces at Mineral Springs Elementary School kicked off its annual fall festival. Students look forward to this all year, teacher and festival organizer Judy Smith said. Smith, along with her 5th grade students, plan, promote, and coordinate the festival events. Some of the day's activities included bobbing for apples, fortune telling, numerous games, and that was as far as I got.
Nice. I love her lead. Love her lead. From the virtual pin the tail on the donkey to action-packed scavenger hunts, the hallways and classrooms were filled with excited young faces as Mineral Springs Elementary School kicked off its annual fall festival. Nicely done. And I like to hear also that teacher and event organizer. She identifies who the person is, so you know who you're talking about. When this person's talking, she tells you who the person is. This is the event organizer. Very nice. And then she goes into some background. Nicely done. This is Karen Pruitt. She's the one that I had up there on the PowerPoint. Okay. What are some of the challenges that you found in writing these? What were some of because this is what you're going to get probably from your teachers. They're going to give you facts, boom, boom, or your people in your departments, boom, 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 boom. This is the information. Especially if they fill out the interactive form that I'm giving you online. Because you need to disseminate that to your people and say, if you've got something going on, here you go, just fill in the blanks and give it back to me. Then you're going to have to take that and turn it into something interesting. I'm always there if you need any help. And this is my cell phone number and my landline at work. I am your editor, for lack of a better word, and I will be there for you to help you write stories. If you've written a feature you want to give to the news media and you're a little bit insecure about the journalistic style, send it to me and I'll help you put it in journalistic style. If you need help inviting the media to your school or department, give me a call and I'll help you do that too. That's what I do. I'm getting a lot of emails from you giving me, I've written my story, here's my picture, it's on the website. I need that. I'm not going to be able to go to all your schools or your departments and know when you've written your stuff. You've got to let me know. Please go to my website. I'm keeping a log of all of the stories that you've done. Those of you who are here for CEU credits, I'm keeping a log of that, and you've got to May. You've got plenty of time. And if you get stuck,